The way that photographers work is a little different than other artists. People who paint and draw start out with a blank piece of white paper or a canvas or something, and then they add to it. They add some paint, they add a line, they add some marks. Photographers, however, work in a completely different way. Photographers start with everything. They start with this 360-degree bubble all around them of objects and things and landscape and people. And then they have to cut it down. They have to choose what little part of that they want to show in the frame. So while painting and drawing and art such as that is additive, where you add things to it, photography is a reductive process. So in this presentation, we are going to learn about some of the choices that photographers make while they stand there with their cameras. There are 5 active choices that we are going to talk about. Focal length, which is the length of the lens, the distance you are from your subject, the angles that you use with your camera, the orientation of your camera, and showing space with a background, midground, and foreground. So the first one is focal length. That's how long your lens is. That's like when you zoom in or zoom out. With lenses, the lower the number, as we see here, the wider the image is. I can see all the way from this tree all the way over here by this fence. As the numbers get higher, we zoom in more and more. And see, in this one, we had the little houses in the background or the barns, and here we get closer and closer and closer. So the higher the number, the more we have zoomed in. Here we can see that again. It's actually literally wider. So when we have a lower number, like 18, we are getting all the way from here all the way to here. But when we have a higher number, such as 400 millimeters, we are zooming in on only part of the picture. Anytime you see this icon, it means that I suggest you pause the video to take a look at whatever's on the screen. So, what does that actually look like in an image? Well, a wide angle shows that expanse. It's great for landscapes. It's great when you want to show things going on all the way to your left and all the way to your right. But know that when you get close to objects using a wide angle lens, they can get somewhat distorted. So you can see that here in this image. Mid-length, or about 50 millimeter on a full frame camera, is what our eyes see. So just like you have some peripheral vision at the edge of your vision, where you couldn't put a book all the way to the side and be able to read it, you'd have to have the book somewhat in front of you to be able to actually see clearly. So that zone where you can see clearly in front of the eye is that kind of mid-length. The zoom is that higher number where you're zooming in. So if this was kind of at a mid and I zoomed in, this is what it would look like. There's one other focal length that's important for you to know, and that's macro. So usually on your camera, you will have this little icon, and if you press that, it might be on the dial, it might be on the back of your camera, it might be in your menu. It's different for each camera. It's going to give you a macro effect, which is, just think of macro like microscope. You're very close in on the image. This is an artichoke, by the way, if you're wondering, the inside of an artichoke. Okay, the next thing is distance. So no matter what focal length you use, you actually still have to decide how far away are things going to be. When you have human beings really far away, where you can't tell who they are, the picture more becomes about humans in general rather than a specific person. And it's great that it can also show the scale of the things around it, like buildings and natural features. You can be a mid distance where you start to be able to see people's faces. This is an image by Jacques-Henri Lartigue. He was a great photographer that took most of his pictures from age 6 to 12, or some of his best pictures. And this is a photograph by Brassai, who was a French kind of nightclub photographer. So he would go out at night and take pictures of people. So again, we're getting closer and we're starting to be able to see people's faces, identify them, and start to see some emotions. If we get even closer and we take pictures of objects, then they can become abstracted. So here we see window blinds. And if you take pictures of people or animals, then it can start being kind of confrontational, or you can really start connecting with a specific person and really see the emotion. Now, the next active choice, intentional decision that a photographer makes is with angles. So you can be canted or angled upwards when you take pictures of people. Or objects or landscapes. You can also see eye level. So generally, everybody in the world sees everything at eye level, right? And in photography, we like to show them the world in a new way. So unless you're taking a picture of something really interesting, like these two twins by Deanne Arbus, you might want to think about having some more interesting angles. Because why show everybody the world that they see all the time anyway? So that's eye level. And then there's the angle looking down. So that adds some visual variety and is different from when we're walking all around the world. And then there's unusual. You can get very high up or very low down. Here, the photographer got down on the ground. And in this ad, it's actually an ad for boots, we see the legs of a Great Dane, but then we see a Chihuahua. So the interesting thing about this unusual angle is that we realize that we are seeing the world the way that Chihuahua sees the world. And in that way, the photographer is showing you the world in a new way. You also have to decide which way you want to turn your camera. Do you want it to be horizontal? If you have objects located in a layout that is wider than it's tall, it makes sense to have a horizontal orientation. If you want to emphasize the height of things or vertical lines, then turning your camera to the side works very well. Here, because this image is vertical and we have the lines of the trees and this post and her thin legs and even her hair, it makes everything look longer and thinner. You can also skew your camera, so it is neither vertical nor horizontal. In filmmaking, that's called a Dutch angle, and it brings a sense of tension to the image. The final thing that we're looking at is creating space. Now, photographs are two-dimensional, they're flat, but we can give the illusion of space by choosing to set up our image where we have objects in our foreground close to us, in our midground, and in the background. So it makes the viewer feel like they could actually walk in and around objects in our photographs. And that background does not have to be miles and miles and miles away. Even if it's just 10 feet away, if we have things closer, middle, and farther away from us, it still gives the viewer a sense that they could go in and around objects. And those are the 5 choices, the first 5 choices that we're talking about in this class, that photographers make while standing there with their cameras before they take their pictures.